Everyone, and thanks for joining us. My name is Robert Yen, and I'm the maths publisher at Nelson Cengage. I've left my email address down there on the bottom in case you have any further questions, maths-related questions for this new series, and also our website there. Joining us today is Sue Thomson and Judy Binns, who are both the authors of the Essential Maths books. So we are going to be publishing for Essential Maths, General Maths, and Maths Methods. And also on the panel is David Truman, who is part of our sales teams. And some of you might know him and have met him in the past. So he'll be answering any sales-related questions. So basically, we're publishing. We used to publish the Nelson Q Maths series, but we've revamped it and given it a new name, and now it's called Nelson Maths. And we're publishing for years 11 and 12. Year 11 by the end of this year for next year, and then year 12 about midway through next year for the following year. And as I said, we're publishing for General Maths and Maths Methods as well. And we've also been quite busy in the background. We've also published recently for years 7 to 10 as well. So now we can have a full range for Nelson Maths 7 to 12. And the thing that we've done differently with our year 9 and 10 books is we've offered 2 levels for those years, a year 9 and 10 advanced level, as well as a year 9 and 10 standard level text. These books will be published in October and November this year, the Units 1 and 2 books, and they'll be $79.95. Okay, let me briefly talk about the new syllabuses for all the QCE maths courses. Now, because it was such a big change with the new names of the courses back in 2019, these 2025 syllabuses are not a big revision of them. It's just a refresh and a declutter. And you can see when you have a look at them, you can see that what they've done is they've moved topics around between units, put them in more logical places, and they've also streamlined things, but also made other things a bit more explicit. Now, overall, there's 10% change at most over the 4 courses, and that's actually mainly in Maths Methods and almost none in General Maths, and then for Essential Maths somewhere in between. There's very little new content. There's some movement and removal of topics, but now all the formulas are included with the syllabus document. So we don't have to wait until the formula sheet to know which are the standard formulas. And now that we've had the benefit of 4 years of QCE maths exams, we can write a year 11 and 12 book that is strictly mapped to the new syllabuses and also informed by those new exams. So we know that we're pitching the level of difficulty correctly, and we know that we're using the correct formula sheet, the correct formulas, and we're covering the new syllabuses at the right level. Okay, Judy's going to talk to you about what is a typical essential maths learner.
This essential maths syllabus is designed for students who either leave school to go to work or perhaps other sorts of training after year 12, and often these students already work part-time. I understand that this course is the second largest course now in Queensland, and so there will be some quite able maths students doing this course who may be doing it because they want to focus on things non-mathematical. They may be art students, they may be students whose parents say, oh, you should do some maths, which still is around, and so they will have it as part of their course of study, but it's not their major focus. However, for a lot of the students at this level who come from the lower end of mathematics achievement in the junior school, many of them will think they can't do maths. I'm no good at maths. Or they believe they've failed maths in the past, which in some ways they probably have, especially if they're compared across the whole of their peers. And probably the most serious flaw is that they think maths is irrelevant to them. And one of our big aims in our books, and I think of the syllabus writers, is to show that, in fact, maths is relevant to them. So what have we done to try and address it specifically to these type of students? We want to make it accessible, and so we've tried to use the skills in practical situations. While we have some skill practice exercises in our books, we largely have practical uses of the information. So we'll have some practice at finding percentages, but we'll apply those to all the practical situations which are outlined in the syllabus and which you'd all be familiar with. We also try to get them comfortable with technology, and so we use spreadsheets, we use online calculators and those sorts of things so that they know how to use these things, which will make life easier for them, where they don't have to know complicated mathematics. We use a lot of internet referrals, and getting students to search things on the internet. And we hope that in doing so, we actually make opportunities for them to be successful, to feel that they have done well at maths, that they have got through the exercise or whatever.
Thanks, Judy. I'm Sue, the other half of the author team, and I'm going to speak to you about the essential domain for this course. As in the past, there are 5 things: number, data, location and time, measurement and finance. Nothing's changed, except there's been a little bit of tweaking, a little bit of new content, which we'll cover when we get to the relevant part, and a little bit of change in the time when it's going to be taught. But essentially, it's very similar to what it was. Problem solving, in my opinion, mine only, the problem solving is one of the major strengths of this syllabus. While all the material is accessible, useful and relevant, doesn't matter how much of that it is, if you can't use it, it's of no use to you. So typically our students at Essential Maths aren't there for the love of maths. They're there because they have to be, or they're passionate about something else. But we're going to present stuff in a way where they're going to be solving problems, real world problems that they're going to need to know in the future. The syllabus committee have given us a very nice little graphic that we're going to use. Oops, there it is. Where they use the terms formulate, solve, evaluate and communicate. They're words for teachers. For our students, some of them aren't as literate as the rest of them. If you've got good literacy skills, you don't have a lot of problems with problem solving. If your literacy skills aren't as good as they could be, then you miss out on all the subtle little clues that good literacy people know. So in our book, we've tried to make things as simple as far as language goes. So we have broken down this schema for how to do problem solving. We've got a pro forma, and instead of saying formulate, we've said stage 1, what's the problem? What do we know? Stage 2, solve the problem. Stage 3, check. Stage 4, present. And after chapter 3, we used our solutions to our chapter problems using the pro forma, so students can start to learn how to use it. We also have a chapter 3 on problem solving, where we do lots of things to help those that haven't got good literacy skills. We do things like estimating. Could the answer be right or could it be wrong? What are language hints to help us do things? Now, at the moment, I've got the pleasure of helping my Year 12 grandson, and we've just about got to the stage where every time he solves a problem, he will estimate what the answer should look like before we start, so that when he gets a solution, it's, yep, it could be right. No, it's not right. I need to start again. But we're still working on how to set it out. It's coming. It's a challenge.
Okay. The other new thing that we've noticed that's been introduced in the syllabus at the front of it is something called strategies for retaining and recalling information for assessment. And it's basically from the science of learning, from current research into cognitive science. Now, we were very excited when we saw that because here at Nelson, we've always designed textbooks that try to maximize student learning with a strong focus on pedagogy and also to help teachers teach the course in the best way possible. So in the syllabus, they have identified these 3 strategies, and you might have heard of some of these in recent years, but when I try to explain them to you in the next couple of slides, it'll make a lot of sense to you, and it's probably something that you're already using anyway. So they're called the spacing effect, the retrieval effect, and interleaving. So the spacing effect is when you study a unit or learn a unit, the importance of leaving gaps between learning concepts from the same topic. So I've got a diagram there, and the first diagram illustrates spacing process, spacing technique, and that is doing half an hour of study or half an hour of revision, but making sure that you leave a gap before you start another session. Whereas later on we've got like study for revise for 1 hour and then leave a gap. And then we've got the more traditional way of studying for 4 hours without a break, although I doubt that any of today's generation would be doing that. But it actually turns out, I mean, it's not surprising that studying without a break for 4 hours is not as effective as studying and leaving gaps in between. So I guess it depends on the student, but studying for half an hour and then having a break, the studies have shown that that's the most effective way. Now, why is it? And it's because if you take a rest and you return to the concepts, it does enhance retention. Having that space or gap means that the brain gets time to absorb and process the new information. You get, often when you've got a problem and you need to think about it, sometimes the solution comes to you overnight because your brain has you've gone to sleep and your brain has been working on it in the background. Well, the same kind of thing happens in learning and memory. So the opposite of that would be what they call learning in a block, or binge learning, or cramming. And we all know that if you haven't learned much and you do all this cramming before an exam the night before, then you might do a little bit better the next day, but a month down the track, you would have forgotten it all. So studying, I think all good teachers and all good students know that studying regularly and leaving gaps between your study sessions will enhance deeper learning and strengthen long-term memory. So and then the second technique is called the retrieval, and it's basically revising your work after a unit of, after a session on studying, testing yourself with short drills and quizzes. So not any kind of formal exam, but doing things like a practice test. So I've got this graph here where everybody studied the same content for 7 minutes, and then they're split up into 2 groups. So the yellow group just does another 7 minutes of study, whereas the brown group, they do a practice test. So they do a quiz where they're tested on their knowledge. So I guess they're actively trying to commit to memory of the knowledge, whereas the yellow group is just doing more study. Maybe it's passive reading or something. Okay, now then they did a final test after 5 minutes, and those students who just studied more did do better, so the extra study did help. But if they did the final test after 2 days, look at the graph in the middle, you can see that those who took the practice test did significantly better after 2 days than those who studied more. And then after 1 week, the results, the differences are even more significant. Now, of course, both graphs, like, there is that amount of forgetting for both groups over time, but the decrease is much sharper for those who just did a block of study and learning without quizzing themselves. So this is called the retrieval effect, And the opposite of that would be just learning a topic and never being quizzed on it, never having learning feedback. I mean, often as teachers, we're guilty of doing a topic and then we forget about the topic for the rest of the year, and then we're surprised that the student doesn't remember the topic the following year. So the retrieval is having deliberate memory exercises to build key knowledge, and it's important that they're struggling to remember things without referring to notes. And the more the struggle, the harder the struggle, the better the learning will stick. Okay, and then finally we have the technique, the memory technique called interleaving. And that is alternating the learning of concepts or topics so that students study or cover 2 or 3 different areas over the same period. So the opposite of that is blocking. So like, let's say A, B, C, D are different topics, and I've actually chosen the ones from the Essential Maths course. So number, finance, measurement, and data. Now, I think we all do this anyway with our programming. We're not going to do all the number topics in a row and then all the finance topics in a row. We're going to mix it up. We're going to do a bit of number, and then a bit of data, and then a bit of measurement, and then a bit of finance. And that's called interleaving, mixing up the related concepts. It's a bit, there has been debate about which one is the better method, because it is counterintuitive to be doing this, but mixing it up does go hand in hand with spacing and retrieval. Because if you're mixing it up and doing alternating between topics, then you are putting space between the topics before you go back to the same topic. And you're also doing retrieval because when you go back to that topic, you will do a bit of revision. So this interleaving approach aids long-term recall. If you do the same topic for weeks on end, which is called blocking, then that can lead to boredom or forgetting. It also means that if you do a block of, say, measurement, and you don't go, and a long block of it, it means you won't be going back to it for a while because there won't be time. So that's where the forgetting happens. So the syllabus says that by learning multiple concepts, students have more opportunities to distinguish between related concepts and see a bigger picture. So they might see that there's links between number and algebra and data and measurement. I mean, they can see that maths is more related rather than these separate, distinct topics. And then this quote is also from the syllabus: interleaving can seem counterintuitive. Participants often felt that they had learnt more with block study, but when they were tested, it actually, the result was greater learning happened through the interleaving approach. I don't know if Sue and Judy, do you have anything to add to that? Or does
Not
anyone
at the
have
moment,
any?
no.
Yeah. Or does anyone have any questions about this? Okay. Well, let me show you just how we do interleaving and spacing and retrieval. And we've always done it this way. When we're teaching the Essential Maths course, we've always broken it down into 16 topics or 16 chapters, and we've tried to vary the range, the different types of different types of areas that are covered. And you'll notice they're not by the title of the chapters. We do try to teach the course thematically. We try to put the application first rather than just drill and practice. We're always having students apply their knowledge and do problem solving. So each book, the Year 11 book, the Year 12 book, contains 16 chapters that cover 2 units. And yeah, we do that interleaving there. And chapter 1's called What's the Score, which is actually from the fundamental calculation topic. As Sue said, chapter 3 is a special solving problems chapter. And then in the Year 12 book, chapter 2, What's the Price, is the fundamental calculations topic. So how do we do spacing, retrieval, and interleaving? Well, as I said, we'd have those chapters that alternate between different topic areas. Every chapter ends with a test yourself review exercise. So there's our retrieval. And then each block of 3 to 5 chapters ends with a practice set of exam style questions. I just noticed a spelling mistake there. So practice set of exam style questions. And that's where we're doing our spacing, I guess, and our interleaving in those mixed questions. Okay, so now we're going to have a look at, go through the syllabus and show you, outline what's covered and what's changed.
Both years start with a fundamental topic, or the syllabus starts with a fundamental topic, which are all the skills we'd really like the students to have learnt and remembered from the junior school, but it's always a mistake to assume that they have remembered it all. So we have a thematic chapter starting year 11. It's a sports theme chapter where we integrate things on the basic order of operations, estimating, rounding answers, using their calculator, all in a sports context. And I'm particularly pleased that such things as golf and indoor cricket have negative scores. So it helped us to bring in negative numbers as well. And then in year 12, our fundamental chapter is based in a pricing context where students are pricing items to sell, all practical. So here we go. Unit 1, topic 1 is everybody's favourite number. You can see there's not a lot that's different, all the same content. However, what we've done this time is to be explicit where the syllabus has said something is complex. You'll notice after dot point 2, we've got the word complex. That's not because it's hard, it's because the syllabus says it's complex, which probably means it's got more than one step to it. After that, we've just used C in brackets. You can see these numbers come up in chapters 5, 4, 2, and 6. The next unit in topic 1 about number has come to us from unit 2. It's a topic that particularly year 11 students have found, I found in my experience, they're pretty interested in food and the gym and looking as good as they can. So things on kilojoules and calories are very popular. So we have a chapter on healthy figures to tap into this interest. And a new part of the syllabus there is about the units of electricity. And as it so happens, our gym has machines where people using the machine generate electricity. So it kind of linked back in with the using calories and kilojoules and electricity, all goes together. Very nice from a thematic point of view. Data. This is the chapter where we need our students to be very critical, looking at what the media is saying to them. Is it right? Are they being led down the garden path? So there's nothing new here, just something that we want our students to be good at, and it's in chapter 7. Managing money. I'm quite passionate about money. This has come to us from unit 2, but I believe that if we don't teach our students well with money, handling money and looking at budgeting, all aspects of money, then their chance of success in later life is not as high as it could be. If you can't get your budget right and you can't pay your bills right, things aren't going to go well for you. So to me, this is a vitally important unit we should be doing. And we do it in chapters 8 and 10.
So unit 2, the first topic in unit 2 is data collection. Again, nothing particularly new here, but when we cover this in chapters 14 and 15. However, we have this time around put a bit more emphasis on taking a census and give the students, one of the exercises asked students to take a census of their year 11 students. And so we've tried to bring out a little more the differences between census and samples and so on. So, and particularly the bias and looking at what can be done to present things either as the actual facts or if they're somewhat twisted and so on. So it's a good topic for students being able to evaluate what they see in the media and so on. The second topic in Unit 2 is graphs. This has come from Unit 1. Obviously, if they swap topics around, something had to come this way. And it sort of covers two different types of graphs. The first sort, which is the first 2 dot points, are basically statistical graphs. And they're in chapter 11. That hasn't changed, particularly in the types of graphs they want you to consider. And so that's all that representation of statistical data that hasn't been done previously. But the second half of it is what we have done in a chapter called practical graphs, but it is more what you would think of as the number plane work on graphs. It is plotting points to form a straight line. It's basically linear, although we do look at some curved graphs because they arise out of practical situations. So although with the graphing straight lines, it starts off with a fairly standard number plane type exercise at the start, immediately we then go into linear modelling, the sorts of practical situations that are represented by a straight line, what happens when they intersect, and those sorts of things. There's also work in there on, as I said, some curved graphs, and also the sorts of graphs about graphing the noise level in your classroom, or those sorts of things that we've seen previously, but nothing particularly new there. The third topic in Unit 2 is time and motion. And the first half or so of that is about time itself. So in our chapter 12, it's about time. It looks at 12 and 24-hour time. We do include a bit of a review of units of time there, and that'll be something you as a teacher can decide whether you think you need to do with your students or not, depending on where you think they're at in terms of understanding that. Time, how long till, how long ago, etc. The second half of time is on going places, and this is the sample chapter that is available, and you'll see later in this presentation how to get a copy or access the sample chapter. And it's all about maps, plans, travelling, speeds, all those things that are related to time and motion.
Is this me?
I think it's you.
Oh, all right, here we go. I'm awake and I'm doing the introduction to Year 12. Year 12 starts with Unit 3, and it goes for the first 9 chapters of the book. And we have a fundamental chapter in that where, as I spoke before, where we look at pricing items, and that's where all the basic skills are redone, percentages, rounding, all of those sorts of things. Are we moving on, Robert? That's what I thought I was talking to. Unit 1 here, where's lots and lots of measurement we're going to do. And in the first bit, it's in chapters 1 and 3. Measuring goes, the bit that's in chapter 1, measuring units for length, area, volume, capacity, and mass, goes through all of the measurement chapters. Stuff about time has come to us from Unit 2, but then we've got some new content on polygons, vertices, edges, angles, properties of prisms, pyramids, vertices, edges, faces, and we've got nets of solids. So a little bit of new stuff there to make us interesting. The next section is on length, area, and perimeter. Again, pretty much what we've done in the past, except we've added cones, and that's pretty exciting because we're going to do volume of cones. There's ice creams and things like that to start working out, and we can link that to calories too, which is pretty interesting. So that's in chapters 1, 4, and 7. Oh, I've got the same slide. Topic Unit 3, Topic 2, Scales, Plans, and Models. Again, nothing new. Bit of Pythagoras and trigonometry, all done through practical applications. Chapters 5 and 7. Unit 3, probability and relative frequency. This has come to us from Unit 4. This is one of my favourite topics, is probability. And when I'm drilling my grandson, remember the one that's in Year 12, I'm desperately trying to help. This is the one topic where I tell him, do not think you know the answer at the start. Our brain is very bad at getting probability. So if you just write down 1/10, I'll give you 99% chance you're wrong. What we have to do is have our students drilled in sample spaces, tables, tree diagrams, and linking this to reality through, in the olden days, we did coin tossing and rolling dice, and wasn't it awful, the noise? Now we can do it with technology. It's very exciting. So for this chapter, we've got lots of things using spreadsheets, random number generators from our technology, all designed to help us solve problems a bit differently. But we still have to link back to writing down our sample spaces and tables and tree diagrams.
Then Unit 4, it's the first topic is bivariate graphs. And so, again, this is not something that's changed an awful lot. You'll find this covered in chapters 13, 14 and 16. So it's graphing linear functions, and that's linked to scatter plots and the association between variables, identifying dependent and independent variables, and looking at a line of best fit by eye, and so getting a feel for what it means. But then it goes on to get the equation of the line of best fit and the correlation coefficients using technology. And so that enables them to treat more complex situations. The new thing here is that there's a little bit more emphasis on the values of M and C in the linear equation, y equals mx plus c. And so it's just extending their knowledge and helping them hopefully to relate that to what's happening with the data. It goes on as before to look at interpolation and extrapolation, and of course causality versus correlation, which is, and often the concept that things one doesn't cause the other. Being tall doesn't make you heavier. They're linked via a third variable, or maybe even more than one other variable. So that's an important concept for them to get. The second topic is summarising and comparing data, and this has come out of Unit 3. And it's these changes between Units 3 and 4 that will have some impact on the examination that these students will undertake. And so we're hopefully what we present you with will help you with that rearrangement. This is pretty standard statistical analysis. Actually, Chapter 10 is how to find the different measures, and then Chapter 12 is how to compare different sets of data and to be able to make intelligent statements about that. And so that's Chapters 10 and 12. Topic 3, I thought we'd gone somewhere else, is loans and compound interest. And this is very much a technology topic, really. They do have to understand simple and compound interest and the difference, and it is important that they know the difference between these things. But a lot of the stuff that is done here is using online calculators or spreadsheets to look at how a loan goes down or an investment goes up or repayments change and so on. And so I think it's actually quite vital, because these are not students who can do these calculations without technology usually. They need, if they can learn how to use the technology, then hopefully they won't end up taking out a loan that they can't afford to repay or things like that. So it's a really important area for them to know and understand. We're sort of assuming, with it being in Unit 4, of course, they won't be tested on it as such in the examination, but hopefully it's very much a real life practical skill that they can learn and make use of as they get older. That really covers the syllabus content, and now Robert's going to take you through some of the features of our textbook that reflect all these different things.
Okay, so we've taken as our sample chapter a chapter that has a lot of new content in it. It's chapter 16 called Going Places. So it's actually the final chapter of year 11 of the Unit 1-2 book. So we've, I guess we've improved on our formula on how to present practical maths to senior students, especially the Generation Z students. So every chapter begins with a double page spread like this, and then a chapter problem, because we think it's important to have some kind of motivating question, some kind of application question at the start of each chapter. So in this chapter, the chapter problem is about Nina and Mitch going for a 9 kilometer bushwalk and what speed they're going to be walking at, when they're going to leave, and then calculating what time they will be back and what time to tell the park ranger to expect them back at the car park. So we're applying the maths. We're not just doing drill and practice questions. And then a chapter problem at the start of every chapter is something that will be solved by the end of the chapter. So on the right-hand side, we've got a chapter outline, a table of contents showing what's covered in the chapter. And you'll notice that anything that's considered complex by the syllabus is given an asterisk there. Then we've got some dot points telling students what will we do in this chapter in plain English. And then also we'll answer their questions, common student question, how are we ever going to use this? So we're giving some examples of when it's important, like when will students be using the information here. So you can see from the table of contents, we cover speed, compass directions, reading maps, and GPS navigation, and also planning itineraries. So this the second the second part of the next 2 pages look like this. So you've got the syllabus coverage at the top there. So the syllabus coverage are actually some extracts from the syllabus. So we haven't done that before, but we are now doing this for the first time to make ourselves accountable, to let you know that we are covering every dot point in the syllabus. And we haven't seen our competitors do this yet, but often they don't do it because they're not 100% certain that they've covered everything. And then after that, we've got all the resources that are available online on our new Nelson MindTap website, which replaces NelsonNet. So we've got things like videos, worksheets, and puzzles. But at the start of every chapter, we will list just what resources can be downloaded by students and teachers from our Nelson MindTap website. And then we've got a terminology list at the bottom there. So there is a big focus on literacy and numeracy in our books. And we're always trying to explain things in simple, approachable language. And then when we go into the first part of the chapter, which is on distance, speed, and time, and we look at the speed formula, you'll notice there isn't a lot of heavy reading. We try to use diagrams, we try to use infographics, we try to summarize important key facts in a shaded box like this. And we try to talk to the student using personal language rather than really formal conventional language. And then on the side, you'll notice that we've got these icons, which are the Nelson MindTap icons, showing you also what's available on the Nelson MindTap website that's related to this lesson, this piece of work. So you've got the video on speed, distance, and time, and you've also got 5 worksheets there on speed. So you're spoiled for choice there. And then our examples look like this. Very structured. Again, a lot of very well spread out, not too much reading, not too many words, because remember, Generation Z and Generation Alpha, they're used to looking at things on screen. They're not used to reading books. They're used to looking at things on websites or apps or their phones. So we need to get in and teach them quickly and just give them the facts and not ramble on. So the examples look like this. We've got the steps on the left-hand side explaining the maths that's being done, and then we've got the working on the right-hand side. You'll notice that we've also highlighted all the cognitive verbs there. So calculate is a cognitive verb, and we've also provided hints. Like we always have these little breakout boxes. Remember this, remember that. So we're always trying to be helpful to the student, and I guess also helpful to the teacher teaching the lesson to let them know to remember to do these things. So I don't know, Sue, Judy, do you have anything to add to this?
No, that's fine.
Yep. So
can I go back and talk about my grandson again? All he ever wants to do is use his brain to do the left-hand side and write down what's the last line of the right-hand side in the working. So we're working on it, and it's making a difference to him being able to look at it and say, oh, okay, so that's what I'm supposed to write.
Yeah.
I'm finding that useful.
That's true. I have a teenage son myself, and yeah, students, especially boys, don't like to write working out. They just want, somehow it's a competition on who can work out the answer fastest and write it down without showing any working. But we all know that that's just increasing your chances of making a mistake and getting 0 marks for a question.
Yes, I'm regularly saying to Zach, I can't mark what's happening in your brain. I can only mark what you've written on paper. And if your answer's wrong and that's all that's there, you get the nice round mark.
Okay, so this is what an exercise looks like. So I guess it's pretty conventional. I mean, we've also listed what page students can find the answers on. We haven't worked it out yet, what page that is, but students will be able to, like there's a handy guide there so they don't have to keep flicking, and then they can just put their bookmark in there. So the questions are linked back to the worked examples. I'll notice question 7 has a PS at the end, which stands for problem solving. And you'll notice that also with these questions, it's not just drill and practice. They're not abstract. Every question is an application question, and it's relevant and practical math. So we've tried to include that. So the question on the right has a distance table showing distances between Brisbane and some cities down south. Question 15 is a what's called a distance time graph or a travel graph. And you'll notice at the bottom there we've got part G. It ends with a coloured C, and C stands for complex. So we've tried to highlight any questions we think that we've written that we think are complex. So any problem solving and complex questions are clearly tagged and color coded. And then we've also tried to include in all our chapters some investigations that students should do in their maths, because maths isn't just doing exercises, it's also investigating things. So
yes, thank you, Robert. Investigations are the way that students start to use the maths that they've learned. There's no point in learning how to find 5% of something if that's all you can do with it. We need to be able to apply it and apply it practically. So we have investigations all through the book, and to teachers, I'd like to say, please do the investigations. You don't have to do all of them, and you don't have to do them the way they are. You can tailor them to your class. Every class is different, so maybe do a little tweak and get them out looking at things and solving the real world problems. In Year 12, we've got some extended investigations, which again, you could adapt or consider as a model for an assessment task, something that they might do over a longer period of time. The one that comes to mind is one about how we might calculate your class's personal rate of inflation. It's an easy calculation. It takes time, but it helps. Other sorts of investigations we have, there's the great trail bike race. It's a practical question. I like this one because all too often people think you can average speeds, which isn't quite right. So there's this one, we give a little bit of a hint as to how you might start out if you can't do it. Start by making up a length for your race. Spreadsheets. There's lots of spreadsheets through our books. Some of them are on MindTab. Some of them, like the one in this question, students have to make themselves. They have to put the data in, but it's teaching them how they can go about solving problems efficiently. So we use spreadsheets, online calculators, websites, apps. If we could think of it, we use it. All right, compass directions. Oh, first of all, the chapter problem. Rob already spoke about the chapter problem. And when students have covered enough content to be able to solve the chapter problem, we put this little thing in, chapter problem hint. You should be able to do it now. Can you do it? Now, coming down to compass directions, I'd like to say that a passion in my life is language and literacy. I have a language disabled child. I've taught English as a second language, and I was the executive in a school where we had international students. I learned very, very quickly how diabolically bad it is if you haven't got literacy and you don't understand the printed word. As a result, I write for these sorts of kids. When I put things together, I've always got my son and my English as a second language student in the back of my mind, trying to make it easily and accessible to them. New words that they may not know are highlighted in bold blue, and then they're included in the glossary. Another thing we've done is students do better when they're familiar with the context. So there's lots of questions that are based in Queensland. For example, flooding in Gympie, something that is near and dear to my heart, seeing as my parents live in flood-bound Gympie. And I've seen the floods of the Mary River as it gets to the Todd Bridge. Thought it was perfect to start as a map reading question. So it's not all about Queensland, because of course there is life past the border, but there's a lot of Queensland context. GPS navigation. Well, we've all had a GPS experience, I'm sure. I can remember using a GPS in Scotland, following it, thinking, yes, I don't know where I'm going, I've got to follow this. And then it said, okay, now catch a ferry. And I'm thinking, catch a ferry? It's about 200 metres over a cliff. Not a good move. We've got a specific unit on looking at how you might use a GPS, how you might use it effectively. This particular question I'm talking about here, it might actually say it's about Kirralie, but it's actually about my friend Helen, who had to go to Brisbane Hospital for a medical appointment and didn't know how to get there. So we had a lovely discussion about how she might do it and using the maps. And she wanted to go to the coffee shop on the way there to fortify herself before her appointment, hence the second half of the question. This stuff is designed to help kids to learn to use their technology effectively. Oh, that's more of it. That's going by the coffee shop and working out what time Helen had to catch the train so that she could get to whatever station it was, exhibition station, to get to her appointment in time. She found that very useful. Then, of course, have you heard about people whinging that GPS said, I'm sorry, I'm late for class, miss. The GPS said I'd be here in 15 minutes, but it took me 25. What we're looking at in this activity is, well, how reliable is the timing for your GPS? It's a little practical activity for them to go through and evaluate, well, is it reliable? Then we use the skills we've got there. Oh, I must be talking too fast. We use the skills to plan a trip, and then the chapter finishes with the family road trip, bringing all the skills together. Okay, I better let somebody else talk.
At the end of every chapter in both books, we have a keyword activity. If you already use our books, you'd be familiar with this. Again, this is to improve their literacy and understanding of the important terms from the chapter. It may be a crossword, or it may be a word match, or it may be writing something in their own words and that sort of thing. So again, it's this interleaving and bringing up things, after time, and designed to improve their knowledge of the words and the literacy of a topic. Also, at the end of the chapter, we have the solution to the chapter problem set out using our problem-solving scaffold. And so they can see how to use the scaffold. Even if they've already solved the problem, they can still see how the scaffold applies to it and takes us through each of the stages. We also have at the end of every chapter a test yourself. This is something that you can either use at the end of a topic as a bit of a diagnostic of which things a student has understood or not understood. It has references back to exercises, but you can also use it a couple of weeks later to see how much they remember and so on. So it has many uses, and hopefully in particular it will help these students with revising for assessments. We also have, as we said, practice sets every 5 3 to 5 chapters. They consist of some multiple choice questions, some short answer questions. Again, topics mixed in together, 3, 4 or 5 topics being brought in together. And again, it just helps them to improve their retrieval, and they can be done as often as you wish to do them, really. They're not just necessarily a one-off.
Yep. Okay. With Nelson Maths, we've always prided ourselves on sticking to the syllabus. So we have a syllabus reference grid at the front of each book. So this is the one for units 1 and 2. So on the left-hand side, the left column is the syllabus topics in order, and then on the right-hand side is where we cover what chapters, where we cover those topics in what chapter they are in. At the front of our books, we have a list of mathematical verbs where the cognitive verbs are highlighted. So these are the doing words in mathematics. We also have a proper glossary and index combined in the back of the book. I've talked about Nelson MindTap before, so very briefly, this is our online platform that contains all the resources, but we have a disclaimer that it's only available to schools that adopt Nelson Maths, so you don't have access to these if you just buy one copy, like a teacher copy or just a student copy or a parent copy. So it does require a teacher and a class to adopt the book, because the teacher actually has to put the course together and register the students. So on this platform, we've got videos, we've got worksheets, we've got skill sheets, spreadsheets. We've got an ebook, an online ebook, where it's got the usual things like bookmarking, but something that's new is the read aloud function in an Australian accent. We've also got the offline chapter PDFs. For teachers, we've got topic tests, teaching plans, and work solutions to every exercise, which are hidden from students but can be switched on for them by the teacher. And you can also customize the chapter resources for different groups of students. So this is a quick overview of Nelson Maths, so the new series. And if you're interested, we're also giving a webinar on general maths next Tuesday. We've already done one for maths methods this week, and then next Friday we're also presenting at the QAMT Rockhampton conference at Cathedral College, and then we are at the QAMT State Conference at Griffith University on the Gold Coast on Wednesday, the 3rd of July, which isn't actually which is second week of school holidays. Okay, I'd like to bring on David now, who is going to talk to us about pricing and availability.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Robert. Thank you, Judy and Sue. That was really insightful. And as a former teacher myself, albeit in English and humanities, I can really see there's a lot of great pedagogical practices written in, some really great user-friendly things in this book that I can see for the teachers and for the students as well. So very, very impressed. I wanted to talk here a bit about the pricing and availability. As you can see in front of you, we're looking at publishing all of our senior texts across all our subjects around November this year. We will have our page proofs due in around about a month or so. We've got a sample chapter available right now. So if you're interested in those things, you can get in contact with us and we can send those links to you. We do offer a bit of a hybrid model. If you just wanted to flick back to that slide there, Robert, the prices you can see there are for the physical print books. With those books, you do receive an online access code for Nelson MindTap within the book. So it's 1-to-1 per student. And of course, the pricing model there is based on a class set adoption. So you as the teacher would be set up with a course and the students would use those codes to join the course. So with those physical books, you'll get a code, but we do also sell the codes separately if you want to do just an online based adoption and you didn't need those physical books, for example. So we've got a hybrid model, something that will fit whatever your school is interested in implementing. Just onto the next slide here. If you are interested in booking an appointment, my name's David Truman. I cover the sort of like the south side of Queensland, as well as the Gold Coast and some regional areas. My offsider is Amanda Cunnington. She's got the north side, and you can see our contact details on the screen there. So if you're interested in the page proofs, if you're interested in the sample chapter that we've got right now, you can get in contact with us. Of course, you can reach out through the website, which you can also see on screen at the moment. So there's a few avenues of getting in contact with us. And if you wanted to book an appointment with us where we could show you Nelson MindTap, have a look at the platform, we can have a bit of a click through. If you wanted to look at the page proofs in person and have a physical flick through the book, we can also do that as well. As Robert alluded to a bit earlier, we also have our Australian curriculum from 7 to 10 fully published. So if you wanted to see those books as well and really get a good idea of that continuity that has been written into our series, of course, we can look at those in those meetings as well. So thank you very much, Robert, for letting me have a quick little say in there. Really impressed so far.